Hello, everyone, and welcome to the TTV Modcast, episode 17.
Woo! Yeah! It's a party!
Yeah.
Totally not reusing jokes from other podcasts!
Nope.
No! That wouldn't be the case at all! And by podcasts, I mean modcasts. Yeah! Fun times! Cool! Great! Awesome!
You know, to break the immersion, we're recording this right after episode 15, so it's the same cast, so who are we?
I don't know, Waj. What's your name?
I'm Waj.
I think I'm Slime. Am I Slime? Are you Slime? I think Lego Master's Slime. Lego Master, are you Slime?
No, I am indeed Lego Master.
Oh, well, that's great. We got that all cleared up. Awesome.
Yeah, so we're doing a special thing this episode since we're talking about Bionicle again, but this is not part of our quadrilogy. But, I mean, feel free to make it a pentalogy or whatever it would be. I don't know.
Make a pentagram, special star out of it.
Yeah, there's one thing that we really didn't talk about in those episodes. The games that were released when Bionicle was still a thing. Or Bionicle Gen 1, that is. There were a lot of games.
A lot more than you'd think.
Yeah, and I mean, we're probably going to focus more on the console games, or like the ones released for handheld, like the Game Boy Advance ones, and the one Bionicle The Game released for PC and PS2.
Non-online games.
There are quite a few online games on Bionicle.com, but I mean, we may cover some of them. Who knows?
They're very simple. They're like from the era of desktop flash games. That it's the kind of thing that, at this stage, if you're not nostalgic about them, then just revisiting them or replaying them is incredibly boring and tedious, I find. But like, how about Bionicle the Game? Because I never really played it, but I guess both of you did.
Bionicle the Game was the tie-in game for Bionicle the Mask of Light, and it was released on PC, PS2, and maybe Xbox, I think. And as well, there were Game Boy Advance versions, and I played both versions, and both were incredibly unforgiving games. I could not get past, like, the second or third level of either of those games. Like, especially the Game Boy Advance one. So I had to resort to using cheat codes on the GBA version just to skip ahead and unlock the Toa Nuva. I pretty much never got past... well, actually, the Bionicle the Game, though, I did reach Liwa Nuva. So I guess I did get farther in that game. Bionicle the Game on console, I mean.
I played Bionicle the Game on the PC. I don't remember when I got it. I don't think it was when it first came out, because I don't think my parents would have purchased that for me at that time, but I definitely got it at some point. I was like, oh, it's a Bionicle game! It's like gonna be great and stuff. I then proceeded to spend like the next 3 years trying to get past the first level as tough. The first level is just brutal. It's not even the first level, it's just like, there's 2 boss battles within it that are like super tough, and then like you get past that and it just gets harder.
Yeah, I remember the beginning of that game being just awful. The fight with the Borok at the end of Tahu's stage, it just kept going on, and I just felt like my blasts weren't doing anything. And then Kopaka is just the worst. I don't know if some people like the whole timed mission thing. I don't. And if you fail it, you have to go all the way back to the start. And it just lasted for so long. It was such a long level. There was the boulder chase, and oh yeah, then the Borok chase. I can't tell you the amount of times I saw the cutscene that would play when you'd fail at chasing the Borok. It was ridiculous. And you have to restart all over again. It's just like, why? You know, it's like, okay, sure, snow surfing is a pretty cool thing, but the entirety of Kopaka's level is snow surfing. Is there even a point where he's on land? Or he's just walking around? I don't think there is. Like, maybe?
I think there's like a short section, but I think the majority of it is just sledding. Can I bring up my own personal least favorite level? I don't think I ever actually beat the game, and the reason for that was Ohatu Nuva's level. That's stupid level. I think it literally broke. I think I literally could not pass it. I lit up all the crystals or whatever you had to do on the mine track, and it's like, oh, okay, I have to line up all things, and nope, it's not gonna work because you know why? I don't know why.
Why is there a mine track?
I don't know.
It is the dumbest level of all time. Basically, it starts out promising. It starts off with Pohatu on the ground, and then you think you can activate his super speed with his powers, his Kakama. But no, shortly after that segment, which lasts for maybe 3 minutes, the entirety of the level is in this minecart, where you have to activate these switches. It's just so tedious, and if you don't hit the switches, you have to start it all over again. And it's just like, who thought this was a good idea? The guys that programmed it, you had that solid beginning. Why minecart? Why, sure, the thing about it is that the levels sort of transition into each other. So at the end of the level, the minecart ends in Onukoro, and the next level is Onua. Yeah, but gosh dang, that level sucked.
Awful. 0 out of 10.
Well, in general, do you think it was appropriate for Bionicle's target audience at the time?
No. Definitely not.
The game in general was the hardest thing ever. What I need to do is I need to try actually playing it again at some point and just trying to see if now that I'm older, more experienced, is it actually as hard as I remember it being? Because I remember I was not the best of aiming as a small child.
One thing though about the Pulwahi minecart sequence, it reminds me a heck of a lot of the minecart sequence in the Traveler's Tales Indiana Jones Lego game. There's an almost identical sequence where your character is in a minecart and you do almost the exact same thing. You're going through a mine shaft, you're going left and right, picking up power-ups and hitting switches or dials or lights or whatever it is. It's almost identical. So,
I wonder if the same team worked on it and they just reskinned it.
No. I'm pretty sure it's completely different, but it's a very similar mechanic. This is a bit of an unrelated, it's not at all related to how we're going in terms of year by year. But what would you guys have thought of a Traveler's Tales kind of traditional, what we know as current Lego style game for Bionicle?
That's a little bit of a tricky question because most traditional quote unquote Lego games have multiple characters that you can swap out.
Right.
Playing Lego Star Wars, you can play as Luke Skywalker and Luke Skywalker and Luke Skywalker in a parka and Luke Skywalker in a different outfit and Leia and Leia in a parka and Leia in another outfit.
With the Lego games, they mainly feature minifigure characters, though. They did experiment a lot with Bionicle, especially the GBA game, Maze of Shadows. That was basically a straight-up RPG. You had your cast of characters, your Toa, from the get-go. They all had their stats and different abilities that they'd gain, and that you'd fight in this combat system, kind of similar to Pokemon. I didn't get really far in Bionicle Maze of Shadows. From what I can remember, it was pretty tedious a lot of the times. That's sort of the nature of RPGs in general. You grind a lot. There's a lot of enemies, and you just fight them all, get all that XP, and cash money, or whatever cash money was in that game. That game was an interesting take on Bionicle and their characters, and just the whole genre. And it seemed to work well. Maybe it's not the best fit for Bionicle.
I think it is. I think that RPGs, in terms of what you do, exploring a world, and maybe RPGs would work better just for Matoran. I mean, I think that's why Monog is so praised, is because it kind of has that exploring sort of feel and just, going around in all these different environments, interacting with different characters. That's very RPG-esque mechanics. And so if they had a full-on Skyrim-style RPG or something like that, where you could explore as a Matoran, you could collect different weapons and tools and interact with Rahi and fight Rahi and maybe Borak or other things like that. To me, that would work as a game.
Well, okay, I guess the thing about Maze of Shadows is that it wasn't exactly an open world. It was basically unlock the next door, the game. There'd be a small section that you'd be able to traverse where there'd be enemies and then there'd be some way to open a door somewhere. I keep remembering that dialogue, that text. It's like, oh, a door has opened somewhere. That text would occur so often that it's like, yeah, it's just opening doors, the game. It's really not like an open world, but if it was, that would be pretty cool.
Maybe it's because like video game mechanics back then, and just video games in general, weren't the most advanced. Like you look at the difference between video games in 2005 and video games in 2016, both in terms of graphics and in terms of what you can do with mechanics. There's a huge difference. So maybe if Bionicle was more popular these days and they did more than just like mobile games, we could potentially have something very, very interesting.
If Bionicle had the same budget as it did and released the same volume of games, it seems like it would be a good fit. Especially sandbox games and open world games in general. It's kind of oversaturated, the gaming market right now with those types of games. But I could definitely see that working. But yeah, I mean, there were quite a lot of games released. Bionicle The Game was one. That was pretty big. And then during the Ignition trilogy, we actually got a game that not a whole lot of people like, Bionicle Heroes.
But why? Why don't people like Bionicle Heroes?
I actually had Bionicle Heroes on PS2. They actually released a DS version of Bionicle Heroes. And Bionicle Heroes on DS was almost a completely different game. And I actually prefer Bionicle Heroes DS. I think the main reason that people don't like Bionicle Heroes is that it might just be too easy for people, as well as it can get just incredibly repetitive.
So it's like the opposite problem of Bionicle the Game?
Yeah, Bionicle the Game was just unforgiving with its difficulty, or it's not really even difficulty, it's just like the amount of obstacles in the way and the amount of insta-deaths that could occur. But with Bionicle Heroes, the game had a pretty formulaic structure to its levels. Basically, so there were 6 areas representing the 6 elements, and there'd be 4 levels in each area. And so the first level, you'd go through and blast stuff, and it was kind of like other Lego games in that you could collect Lego studs.
This is the DS game or the...
No, this is the console game.
Okay, yeah, because I played a bit of that. I remember what you mean. It's a lot of weird weapons, though. That's one thing that I'm realizing, because as I understand it, they had like a tiered weapon system, right? You started out with some kind of equivalent of mostly the Mata's weapons, and then did you go to like the Metro weapons, and then to finally get at the Bionicle weapons, or am I not remembering it right?
I think you're remembering it correctly. I can't remember it myself, but that seems right, because you could purchase weapon upgrades.
Bionicle Heroes is a lot more similar to the conventional kind of Traveler's Tales.
It was made by TT Games.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
You basically, you blast your way through enemies, and the end of the first level, there'd be a boss, and it would be a Rakshi for some reason. And then second level would basically be just nothing but firing at stuff. The third level would basically have like a mini-boss, and it would be like some character from 05 or 06, which would be like Brutaka or Axon or Nidiki. And then the fourth level would have one of the Piraka of their respective element. And you rinse and repeat that 6 times. And then you gain entrance to Vizon. And then you have the final battle. It's like 24 levels of basically the same thing over and over and over again. So I think that's one of the reasons that people don't generally like Bionicle Heroes. But I don't know, actually, like, if you have played Bionicle Heroes in the past, dear listener, then post in the comments, it's like, why do people not like Bionicle Heroes? Because we want to know.
Or do you like it?
Or do you like it?
To me, it's kind of like similar to the other Lego games, and people harp on the Lego games a lot for being repetitive and for using the same formula again and again with each game. But it's personally, I find it's because it's a fun formula that works, especially when you're into the story and into the universe. Like for me, I like Bionicle Heroes because you get to explore, you get to smash stuff and collect. Actually, in Bionicle Heroes, it's not studs; it's Technic pieces, small little Technic pieces, which is a nice touch. Like I said, there's some things that are weird with the weapons. Like you literally have Golly's hook from 2001, which is like a beam weapon, and Liwa's axe, which is a shotgun. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's a quirky game. I think that's the big thing. It's a really quirky game that doesn't take itself too seriously. A lot of stuff is non-canon, but it's kind of the laid-back, go around breaking everything and solving puzzles. It can get repetitive, but in small doses, it's the kind of thing that's just I just find it harmless fun. It's not too involving. It's just fun to break things and reassemble things a lot.
Yeah, that's basically the game. Maybe people were disappointed that there wasn't, like, a game that fit into the canon, because maybe that's just what people like. Because Maze of Shadows was basically a book, and Bionicle The Game was Mask of Light, so yeah. I guess people were maybe just upset. And yeah, that was basically the last console game that we got for Bionicle. We got other games from Bionicle.com. We got web games. They'd add new games every year. Some of them were pretty cool. Like, I can distinctly remember Piraka Attack. I just remember playing that a whole lot. It's basically the game where you play as one of the Piraka and exterminate all of the Matoran, all of the Voyatoran. It was basically a shoot 'em up, but that you can move around in, like, one square room instead of flying through space, as most shoot 'em ups are like.
Did you guys ever play Glatorian Arena?
I played the first one. I never played the second one.
Slime, do you remember if it had really involved combat mechanics? Because that's the kind of game that I feel like that's a Bionicle concept that applies itself really well to that particular genre of game. Not Street Fighter, but Mortal Kombat-esque duel, because you have basically these gladiator matches, which is what the first half of 2009 won. And that conceptually, I found lended itself really well to that specific genre. But do you remember if the game was actually any good?
There was like no combos, I don't think. And there was like a few special abilities, like customized. I think I might be misremembering, but like I don't remember it being very involved at all.
It's been a long time since I played Glatorian Arena, which was, back in 2009, so I can remember vaguely that you could dodge. That's a thing you could do. It was basically in 3D space, but you couldn't jump, at least from what I can recall. You could imagine sort of not necessarily going into the background, but sort of circling. You could move left or right. The camera would move with you, and that was pretty cool, like a 3D game on the website.
I was just looking through the list of games here. Stop the Morbuzakh. Does anyone remember that?
I remember seeing that. I don't know if I ever actually played it.
I think it was on the site until like 06 or so, or maybe later, but like I remember it being like so fun, even though it was like so tiny and like so, you're just shooting freeze discs at the Morbuzakh. Like pretty much it.
I remember downloading that on like my Windows XP, I guess, and that was one of the first games I ever downloaded online. I remember being so hyped about it. It's like, oh, it's a 3D FPS game, and you can shoot stuff. When I got it, the title screen looked pretty promising. Oh, it had Vakama's logo. And I was like, oh, are there going to be other games with the other Toametru? Nope. I was really hyped for it, but my expectations fell flat when I actually played the game. You shoot these green vines, the Morbuzakh, in this protodermis facility, something like that. I don't know. And you're Vakama, and you have the option of 2 Kanoka discs. A regular disc that does normal damage, whatever that is, and the other one is a freeze disc, which I don't know if it actually did more damage, because if it did, then the game is basically broken. Or it may have been a power-up that would just randomly appear. Maybe that's what it was. And then, like, you're confined to this small area, shooting at vines, and you're just doing that. That's the entire game. It could have been fleshed out more. Or, there could have been other characters that you could have played as, or maybe more options, a bigger area, I don't know. Really anything could have made that better.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I just saw it and I was like, oh, hey. Also to note, there was apparently a Glatorian Arena 3 that was released exclusively on BZ Power.
Really?
It was never on Bionicle.com. I don't think it's like any different from the other games, but from what I can tell, it's just the same game with like all the characters mixed together, and like there's no visiting a gory on the outskirts. That whole thing was like just so stupid. So with Bionicle Generation 2, we've seen the influx of a brand new set of games. But guess what? They're supposed to appeal to the hip and new and groovin generation of mobile game users.
Yeah, hip of the kids, man. Yo.
Yeah, Bionicle Mask of Creation and Bionicle Mask of Control. What do you guys think of those games?
I mean, those are beat 'em up games. That's what they are. And the controls for those games are basically just tap tap, hit something, tappity tap, hit another thing, and that's the game. You do that, and you rinse and repeat, and tappity tap all the way. I guess you press some buttons, maybe. There's like some buttons that allow you to like release some super attack. Not the most engaging thing in the world. It sort of has that repetitive thing that we talked about with the other Bionicle games. You go through the same levels, and even though you're different characters, it's still pretty much the same game. You're doing the same things over and over, and there's not much of a variety of things.
Yeah, I'd say I agree. I will say, though, that I do like the graphics that are used, especially with Mask of Creation.
By graphics, do you mean the actual like look of the game and the environments, or do you mean kind of the Toa's abilities and some of their moves? Because I find some of the moves that the Toa have in Mask of Creation actually really neat, despite the fact that like all they're really doing is punching / slicing skull spiders, which isn't the most engaging concept. The skull spiders are tiny, right? And they're not very threatening as far as game enemies go, right? You're essentially just squashing bugs. That's basically what Mask of Creation is. You're just squashing bugs. So story-wise, I wouldn't say it's very engaging, but it's not supposed to be, right? It's just supposed to be a fun little mobile game for the younger kids who just want to have a taste of Bionicle and whose parents want them to be occupied for a couple minutes / hours. I don't know if you could be occupied by this game for hours. Like,
yeah, no, it's really not engaging. Even for a small child, I'd say it's probably not the most engaging thing out there. And I mean, there's so many things to fight for children's attention, so it's like, yeah, this probably wouldn't hold it for very long. It's like, oh, you tap and stuff, and you hit the spiders. Although I guess there was an update as well, apparently, to Mask of Creation that added new enemies, like the skull villains, to the mix.
And Ekimu. Don't forget Ekimu. Ekimu.
Ikimu, yes. I really don't like Bionicle games where the Toa are separated by levels. I like games where you can switch between the Toa, like Bionicle Heroes and Maze of Shadows. It gives you more of a variety of moves that you could use in situations, but you don't really get that in Mask of Creation or Control. Basically, an enemy just varies in the amount of hits that they take, but the Toa that you use against them, they're all the same.
yeah, just different animations. And I mean, like,
Yeah.
it seems to me that the games where you have to switch between Toa really do take advantage of and kind of emphasize the team dynamic and all of their different powers and the fact that they have different powers that need to be used for different situations. So in that case, like those kind of team-based games are a lot more faithful to what Bionicle is about, some of like the core concepts from the story, right?
Yeah, it's unity, it's the virtues or whatever. Great.
Unity, unity, and unity. Those are the three virtues. Thank you, good night.
Unity, the platform that they use to make Glatorian Arena.
Yeah, like a lot of the later Lego games from like 2008 were using that engine. But speaking of the three virtues, I believe it may be our duty to fulfill our destiny in ending this episode. So let us unify in our saying goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, guys.
No, I don't want to